I am Jeannie, 28 years old, and the night before what should have been the happiest day of my life, my own parents drugged me and shaved my head bald. Through my drugged haze, I heard my younger sister Allison scream, "Cut her hair or lose me forever." They chose their golden child and betrayed me. I woke up completely bald on my wedding day. But when those chapel doors opened, the entire room fell silent. What happened next changed everything. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Grab some tissues, hit that like and subscribe button, because this story about family betrayal and unexpected triumph is one you will not want to miss. Growing up in middle-class suburban Chicago, my childhood looked picture-perfect from the outside. Our two-story colonial house with the white picket fence was the embodiment of the American dream. My father, David, worked as a financial advisor, while my mother, Susan, taught elementary school. We had family vacations to Florida every winter and backyard barbecues every summer. But beneath that pristine surface ran an undercurrent of favoritism that shaped my entire life. From the moment my sister Allison was born when I was 2 years old, she became the center of our family universe. While I had my father's plain brown hair and average features, Allison somehow won the genetic lottery, with golden curls and striking blue eyes. She looks like a little doll visitors would coo while I stood awkwardly to the side, already forgotten. As we grew, the pattern only intensified. For my 8th birthday, I received practical gifts like clothes and books. 2 months later, Allison turned 6 and got the elaborate dollhouse I had been dreaming about all year. When I questioned this, my mother pulled me aside. "Jeannie, you need to understand that Allison is more sensitive than you. You are so strong and independent. She needs extra attention." That became the family narrative. Jeannie is strong. Jeannie does not need attention. Jeannie will be fine. In 4th grade, I won the school science fair with a project on water purification. My parents attended the ceremony but left early because Allison, then in 2nd grade, was performing in a minor role in her class play. "We will see your certificate later," my father said, patting my head. "Allison is so nervous about her 3 lines. She needs us there." Family photos told the same story. Allison front and center, often sitting on Dad's lap or with Mom's arm around her. Me slightly off-center, sometimes partially cut off in the frame. These photos lined our hallway wall, a daily reminder of where I stood in the family hierarchy. It would be easy to say I grew to hate Allison, but the truth is more complicated. She was just playing the role our parents created for her. She learned early that tears and drama got her what she wanted. By the time she reached her teens, she had refined emotional manipulation into an art form. One incident stands out with painful clarity. When I was 16, I saved for 6 months from my part-time job at the local library to buy a beautiful blue dress for prom. The night I brought it home, Allison, then 14, tried it on while I was in the shower. I found her twirling in my room, the dress already stretched and stained with her makeup. "Take it off," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her lower lip trembled on cue, but it looked so much better on me. Mom and Dad tell her. My parents, who had been watching from the doorway with indulgent smiles, turned to me with expectant faces. "Jeannie, be reasonable," my mother said. "Your sister really loves this dress." "And blue is more her color with her eyes," my father added. "We will buy you another dress." They never did. I wore a discount store dress to prom, while the blue dress was altered to fit Allison for a middle school dance the following month. These experiences taught me valuable lessons. I learned that I could only rely on myself. I focused on academics with singular determination, knowing education was my ticket to independence. While Allison was the social butterfly with endless drama in her ever-changing friend groups, I maintained a few solid friendships and directed my energy towards securing a future away from home. My hard work paid off when I received a full academic scholarship to Northwestern University. The day my acceptance letter arrived, my mother glanced at it and said, "That is nice, honey. Did you see that Allison was chosen to be junior prom princess?" College became my first taste of real freedom. 200 miles from home, I flourished in an environment where I was valued for my mind and contributions. I found friends who did not make everything a competition, who actually listened when I spoke. I joined the marketing club and discovered my passion for creative problem-solving and strategy. My parents called weekly, but our conversations invariably revolved around Allison, her latest achievements, her boyfriend problems, her college plans. I learned to murmur appropriate responses while studying or cleaning my dorm room. After graduation, I landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago. I found an apartment with my college roommate Tara, who had become like the sister I had always wanted but never had. For the first time, I had created a life that was truly my own. Financial independence gave me the greatest gift, the ability to set boundaries. I limited family visits to major holidays. I stopped expecting approval or recognition. I built my career methodically, earning promotion after promotion until I became one of the youngest executives at the firm. With each accomplishment, I waited less and less for my parents to notice. With each passing year, I needed their validation less. I was creating my own happiness on my own terms. If they could not see my worth, others could. I could. What I did not realize then was that this independence, this life I had built for myself, would become the greatest threat to the family dynamic my parents and sister had cultivated for decades. My growing success was setting the stage for a betrayal I could never have imagined even in my darkest moments. 3 years before my wedding day, I attended a charity gala for a children's hospital representing my marketing firm. The venue was spectacular, one of those historic Chicago buildings with soaring ceilings and intricate architectural details. I was admiring a particularly beautiful archway when a deep voice beside me said, "The craftsman who designed that spent 3 months hand-carving those details." I turned to find myself looking at the most genuine smile I had ever seen. The man was tall with dark hair and warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners. He extended his hand. "Michael Walker, architect and amateur architecture historian. I promise I do not bore everyone with building facts, just the ones who look genuinely interested." His handshake was firm, his gaze direct but gentle. "Jeannie Adams," I replied. "Marketing executive and person who is actually fascinated by that information. Please bore me some more." We spent the next hour walking the perimeter of the ballroom as he pointed out hidden details most people would never notice. He spoke with such passion about the intention behind each design choice. No one had ever paid such careful attention to the things that interested me before. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I found myself giving it without hesitation. 2 days later, we had our first official date at a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. Over homemade pasta, I learned that Michael was 30, had grown up in Michigan, and had moved to Chicago 5 years earlier for his architectural firm. What struck me most was how he listened. When I spoke about my work, he asked thoughtful questions. He remembered details from our previous conversation. He seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and opinions. As the weeks turned to months, our relationship deepened. Michael noticed things about me that my own family never had. He commented on my analytical mind, my quiet determination, my empathy for others. "You see problems from angles most people miss," he told me once. "It is like you have this whole different perspective." 6 months into our relationship, I finally introduced him to my family at Thanksgiving dinner. I had warned him about the dynamics, but experiencing it firsthand was different. Throughout the meal, my parents interrogated him about his career and family while barely asking me a single question about my recent promotion. Allison, 23 at the time and between jobs again, monopolized the conversation with tales of her brief stint in Los Angeles trying to become an actress. When Michael politely asked about my work projects, Allison interrupted with a dramatic story about her almost callback for a commercial. In the car ride home, Michael was unusually quiet. "Finally," he said. "They have no idea who you are, do they?" His voice contained no judgment, only sadness. "You are this incredible, accomplished woman, and they treat you like an afterthought." I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur through unexpected tears. They have always been that way. Allison is their real daughter. I am just extra. Michael pulled the car over and turned to face me. "Listen to me. There is nothing extra about you. You are essential, brilliant, and deserving of so much more than they give you. They might not see it, but I do. And someday they will regret not appreciating the amazing woman they have been taking for granted." His words cracked something open inside me. For the first time, I allowed myself to really feel the hurt I had been carrying for decades. With Michael, I did not have to be the strong one, the one who was always fine. I could be vulnerable. The contrast between Michael's family and mine could not have been more stark. The first time I visited his parents in Grand Rapids, they welcomed me with genuine warmth. His mother had framed photos of Michael at every age around the house and told stories of his childhood with obvious pride and affection. His father, also an architect, showed me Michael's first building sketches from when he was 8 years old, carefully preserved in a portfolio. They keep everything, Michael explained, slightly embarrassed. Every drawing, every school project. My mom has a box of my baby teeth somewhere, which is honestly disturbing. What struck me most was how they listened when Michael spoke, how they knew the details of his life, his friends, his projects. They disagreed, sometimes even argued, but beneath it all was a foundation of respect and love that never wavered. As our relationship progressed, Michael became increasingly concerned about my family situation. "It is not healthy the way they treat you," he would say. "You deserve better." I continued to include my family in our relationship milestones, always harboring that small, stubborn hope that something would change. When Michael and I moved in together after a year of dating, my mother's primary concern was how Allison would feel about it since she had recently gone through a breakup. Michael proposed on our 2-year anniversary. He recreated our first meeting with a private tour of architectural wonders throughout Chicago, ending at the place we first met. There, beneath that same beautifully carved archway, he knelt on one knee. "Jeannie Adams," he said, his voice steady, but full of emotion, "you notice the details others miss. You build people up instead of tearing them down. You have created beauty from pain. I want to build a life with you to create spaces, physical and emotional, where you always feel valued, respected, and loved. Will you marry me?" Through tears, I said yes. The ring was perfect, a vintage design with intricate details that showed how well he knew me. That night, as we celebrated with champagne in our apartment, I felt a lightness I had never known before. For once, I was the main character in my own life story. When I called my parents with the news, my mother's first response was, "Have you told Allison yet? You know, she just broke up with Tyler last week. This might be hard for her." Even as my heart sank, a small part of me held on to the hope that my wedding might finally be the occasion where my parents saw me, really saw me. Foolishly, I believed that this milestone might finally earn their approval, their attention, their love. I did not know then that this hope would lead to the most painful betrayal of my life. I could not have imagined that in their desperate attempt to maintain the family dynamic, they would go to unthinkable lengths. That the path to the altar would become a battlefield I had never wanted to fight on. Michael and I set our wedding date for the following spring, giving us 10 months to plan. We found a historic chapel with stunning stained glass windows and a reception venue with a view of Lake Michigan. Every detail mattered to me, not because I wanted a perfect Instagram wedding, but because this day represented something profound, the beginning of a family where I would be valued. I approached wedding planning with the same methodical attention I gave my work projects. I created spreadsheets, researched vendors, and curated a vision that reflected both Michael and me. I wanted our wedding to tell our story, to have meaning beyond the surface details. When I showed my mother our venue choices via video call, her response was lukewarm at best. "Very nice, dear. A bit understated, but nice. Have you thought about the botanical gardens? Allison always dreamed of getting married there?" This became the refrain throughout the planning process. Every choice I made was measured against Allison's hypothetical wedding, though she was neither engaged nor in a serious relationship. My father's reaction to our engagement had been equally disappointing. He congratulated us briefly before launching into concerns about the financial aspects. "Weddings are expensive these days. Michael, I hope you understand what you are getting into." There was no offer of contribution, no fatherly pride, just vague warnings and barely concealed skepticism. The first major conflict arose during dress shopping. I had invited my mother Allison and my best friend Tara. I found a beautiful A-line gown with vintage lace that made me feel elegant and timeless. As I stood on the boutique platform, momentarily allowing myself to feel special, Allison stepped up beside me. "Let me try on some dresses too," she announced, just to give Jeannie some perspective. Before I could respond, my mother clapped her hands. "What a wonderful idea. You have always had such a good eye for fashion, Allison." For the next hour, I sat and watched my sister parade around in wedding gowns while my mother took countless photos and gushed over how bridal she looked. When the consultant gently reminded them that I was the bride, my mother waved her off. "Oh, we are just having fun. Jeannie does not mind. She has never been the fussy type." Tara, witnessing this spectacle with increasing horror, finally intervened. "Actually, we need to focus on Jeannie today. This is her appointment." She turned to me. "The first dress was stunning on you. Let us see it again." With Tara's support, I purchased the gown I loved, though the joy of the moment had been thoroughly overshadowed. Venue visits followed a similar pattern. My parents insisted on coming along, bringing Allison with them. At each location, they deferred to her opinions about decor layout and ambiance. "Allison has such a good sense for these things," my mother would tell the confused venue coordinators. She almost went into event planning. The rehearsal dinner became another battleground. Michael's parents had generously offered to host it at an upscale restaurant near the wedding venue. When I shared the menu options with my family, Allison immediately complained about the lack of vegan options, though she had adopted this diet only the previous week. "I cannot eat anything on this menu," she declared dramatically. "Can we change the restaurant?" When I explained that Michael's parents had already put down a deposit, my father called me inflexible and inconsiderate. "Your sister has dietary restrictions, Jeannie. Surely you can make accommodations." Michael, who had been observing these interactions with growing concern, finally spoke up. "The restaurant has already confirmed they can prepare vegan options. We sent that information in the group email last week." "Well, I did not see that email," Allison pouted. "No one ever considers my needs." After that incident, Michael sat me down for a serious conversation. "Jeannie, I am worried about how your family treats you. The constant criticism, the way they elevate your sister and diminish you. It is not normal, and it is not okay." Deep down, I knew he was right. Yet some stubborn part of me still craved my family's approval. "They have always been this way," I told him. "It will get better after the wedding, once everything is less stressful." "And if it does not?" he asked gently. I had no answer for that. The breaking point came when I had to choose my bridal party. I asked Tara to be my maid of honor, along with 3 other close friends as bridesmaids. I included Allison as a bridesmaid, but not in the principal role. It was the first time I had ever prioritized my own needs over hers, and the reaction was nuclear. Allison called me in tears. "How could you humiliate me like this? Everyone will know you chose someone else over your own sister. Do you hate me that much?" My parents' phone call came minutes later. "Jeannie, what is this we hear about Allison not being your maid of honor?" my mother demanded. "She is devastated." "Tara is my best friend," I explained. "She has been there for me through everything." "But Allison is your sister," my father countered, as if that single fact trumped all other considerations. "Family comes first, always." "Tara is my maid of honor," I repeated, my voice firmer than it had ever been with them. "Allison is welcome to be a bridesmaid, but this is my decision." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice cold. "I see. Well, you have made your choice very clear." For the next few days, my phone buzzed with manipulative text messages from all 3 of them. Allison claimed I was ruining her only chance to be a maid of honor since she had no other sisters. My mother suggested I was being selfish and unreasonable. My father simply sent, "Your mother is very upset. Fix this." For once, I did not cave. With Michael's support, I held firm. "This is our wedding," I told them during an excruciating family dinner. "I love you all, but I need you to respect my choices." Surprisingly, the week before the wedding brought an apparent ceasefire. Allison called to apologize, sounding more sincere than I had heard her in years. "I overreacted," she said. "You are right, it is your wedding. I am honored to be a bridesmaid." My parents, too, seemed to accept my decision. "We just want you to be happy," my mother said when they arrived in town 3 days before the wedding. "We are looking forward to your big day." I allowed myself to believe that perhaps they had finally heard me, that they were finally seeing me as an adult capable of making my own decisions. I did not recognize the calm for what it was, not acceptance, but the eye of a hurricane that was about to destroy everything. The night before our wedding arrived with perfect spring weather. Both families gathered for the rehearsal at the chapel, followed by dinner at the waterfront restaurant Michael's parents had selected. The ceremony practice went smoothly, with the wedding coordinator guiding everyone through their positions and timing. Allison performed her bridesmaid duties without complaint, even complimenting my hair, which I had grown long for the wedding and had just styled in a trial run of my bridal look. "It looks really pretty," she said, fingering a strand. You will look beautiful tomorrow." Something in her eyes made me uneasy, but I dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters. The rehearsal dinner maintained a veneer of civility. Michael's family, warm and genuine, as always made efforts to engage with my more reserved parents. My father actually laughed at a story Michael's dad told about architectural disasters, and my mother had a lengthy conversation with Michael's mom about their shared love of gardening. Allison was on her best behavior, charming Michael's younger brother with self-deprecating stories and asking thoughtful questions about his medical school experience. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for her to make the evening about herself somehow, but she remained surprisingly subdued. As dessert was served, my father clinked his glass. "Before we all part for the evening, Susan and I would like to invite Jeannie to join us at home for a special family toast. Just the four of us, a little Adams family tradition before she becomes a walker tomorrow." I glanced at Michael, confused. We had no such family tradition. In 28 years, we had never done a special toast before any significant event. Michael sensed my hesitation. "I can come too," he offered. My mother quickly interjected, "Oh, that is sweet, but it is really just for immediate family. It will only take an hour or so, and then Jeannie can head back to your hotel. It is bad luck to see the bride before the wedding anyway." Michael's parents, ever respectful of other family customs, encouraged him to honor my family's tradition. Michael reluctantly agreed, but pulled me aside as the dinner was breaking up. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Something feels off." "It will be fine," I assured him, though a vague sense of unease had settled in my stomach. They are probably just trying to have a meaningful moment before the wedding. Maybe they are finally coming around. He searched my face, then kissed me gently. "Call me when you are done, okay, no matter how late." "I will. I love you." "I love you too. By this time tomorrow, you will be Mrs. Walker." The drive to my parents' house was quiet. Allison sat in the back seat texting while my father made small talk about the weather forecast for tomorrow. When we arrived, my mother bustled into the kitchen and returned with a bottle of champagne and 4 crystal flutes I had never seen before. "These were from your grandmother," she explained, setting them on the coffee table. "We have been saving them for a special occasion." My father opened the champagne and poured 4 glasses, handing them around. "To our Jeannie," he said, raising his glass, "and new beginnings." Something in his tone made my skin prickle with warning. I hesitated before taking a sip, watching as Allison drank deeply from her glass, an odd smile playing at her lips. The champagne tasted slightly bitter, but I attributed it to my nerves. After a few minutes of strained conversation about wedding details, a peculiar dizziness began to wash over me. The room seemed to tilt and blur around the edges. My limbs felt leaden, unresponsive. "What?" I tried to stand but stumbled, knocking over my half-empty glass. "Something is wrong." My mother and father exchanged a look I could not interpret through my increasingly foggy vision. "Allison, go get the things," my mother said quietly. As I slumped against the couch cushions, fighting to keep my eyes open, I saw Allison return with a plastic sheet, a pair of scissors, and what looked horrifyingly like an electric razor. "No," I mumbled the word, slurring. "What are you doing?" Through the haze of whatever they had drugged me with, I heard Allison's voice rise to a shrill demand. "You have to do this. Cut her hair or lose me forever. I mean it this time. If she gets to walk down that aisle tomorrow looking perfect while I am just a background bridesmaid, I will never speak to any of you again." "Allison, please," my father said, his voice strained. "There has to be another way." "There is no other way," she screamed. "Every single day of my life, I have had to watch her succeed at everything while I struggle. College career, and now the perfect fiancé and wedding. Tomorrow is supposed to be the most beautiful day of her life. Well, not if I can help it." I tried to move to protest, to escape, but my body refused to cooperate. I felt hands lifting me, positioning me. The crinkle of plastic beneath me. The cold metal of scissors against my scalp. "We are sorry, Jeannie," my mother whispered, and I felt the first horrifying snip as a lock of my hair fell onto the plastic. "But family comes first. Allison needs this." "And you do not need hair to get married," Allison added, her voice thick with vindictive pleasure. "Think of it as something borrowed, something new, something missing, something bald." The buzzing of the electric razor was the last thing I heard clearly before darkness claimed me. Allison's satisfied face watching, as my parents systematically destroyed not just my wedding hairstyle, but all of my hair was the final image burned into my mind. I woke the next morning in my old childhood bedroom, head pounding, mouth dry. For one blissful moment, I did not remember what had happened. Then my hand moved to my head, and instead of hair, I felt only smooth skin. They had shaved it completely. A strangled sound escaped my throat as I stumbled to the bathroom mirror. My reflection was unrecognizable, my scalp pale and exposed every contour of my skull visible. Not even a quarter-inch remained. They had been thorough in their betrayal. On my bedside table sat a note in my mother's handwriting. "We are sorry, but family comes first. Your dress is hanging in the closet. The ceremony is at 2. We will see you at the chapel. Love, Mom and Dad." Love. They had written love after drugging me and shaving my head on the night before my wedding. The magnitude of their betrayal crashed over me like a physical wave, leaving me gasping for breath on the cold bathroom floor. In that moment, as the morning sun filtered through the window onto my violated scalp, something inside me fundamentally changed. This was who they were. This was who they had always been. And no amount of hoping or trying or accommodating would ever change that. I do not know how long I sat on that bathroom floor, my body shaking with silent sobs. 10 minutes or an hour time had lost all meaning. The wedding was at 2 o'clock. It was now just past 8 in the morning. In 6 hours, I was supposed to walk down the aisle to marry the love of my life, and I was completely bald. My first coherent thought was of Michael. Sweet, loving Michael, who deserved better than to be drawn into my family's toxic web. Should I call off the wedding, disappear? How could I possibly face everyone like this? With trembling fingers, I reached for my phone, which someone had plugged in beside the bed. 12 missed calls from Michael. 3 from Tara. Numerous text messages asking if I was okay. Instead of responding to Michael, I called Tara. She answered on the first ring. "Jeannie, where have you been?" Michael is frantic. "Are you okay?" The sound of her concerned voice broke the dam, and I began to sob uncontrollably. They shaved my head. I finally managed to gasp. All of it. They drugged me and shaved my head. Who did? What are you talking about? My parents. Allison. Last night. The special toast was a setup. They put something in my champagne and shaved my head while I was drugged. The silence on the other end was profound. Then Tara's voice deadly calm. "I am coming to get you. Right now. Do not move. Do not talk to your family if they are there." "Are they in the house?" "No," I whispered suddenly, realizing the house was eerily silent. "I think they are gone." "Lock the doors. I will be there in 15 minutes. True to her word, Tara arrived in record time using the spare key I had given her years ago. When she saw me bandana wrapped around my bare head, her face went through a series of emotions: shock, heartbreak, and finally a rage so pure it was almost frightening. "Those monsters," she breathed. "Those absolute monsters." She pulled me into a fierce hug, then held me at arm's length. "Listen to me. We are going to fix this. Not because you need fixing, but because you deserve to have the wedding you planned the way you planned it. Where are your parents and that witch of a sister?" "I do not know. They left a note saying they will see me at the chapel." Tara's laugh was without humor. "Well, they have another thing coming if they think they are attending this wedding." She was already on her phone scrolling through contacts. "First things first. Michael has been worried sick. Do you want to call him?" The thought of explaining this to Michael over the phone made my stomach clench. "I cannot. Not yet. He will want to confront them, and right now I just need to figure out what to do." Tara nodded, understanding without judgment. "He called me twice looking for you. I will text him that you are with me and safe, and that we are handling some last-minute bridal details. It will buy us some time." As she texted, her face lit up with sudden inspiration. "I have an idea. My cousin Sarah works with cancer patients. She is a stylist who specializes in head wraps and makeup for women who have lost their hair to chemo. She is amazing. Let me call her." While Tara made the call, I sat on the edge of my bed trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. My own parents had violated me in my most vulnerable state, had physically altered my body against my will, all to appease my sister's jealous demands. The depth of the betrayal was unfathomable. "Sarah can see us right now," Tara announced, pulling me from my dark thoughts. She is clearing her morning schedule. She says she has beautiful silk wraps that can be styled to look elegant and intentional. "Grab your dress and whatever else you need. You are never coming back to this house again." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sarah's salon was warm and private, with signs requesting clients respect each other's privacy. When she saw my freshly shaved head, her kind eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained professional. "I work with women going through the hardest times in their lives," she explained, as she gently examined my scalp, which thankfully had no nicks or cuts. "Many of them talk about reclaiming their beauty, about finding new ways to feel confident. Today, we are going to make you feel like the queen you are." She showed me a selection of silk head wraps in various colors. "With your dress being ivory lace, I would suggest this champagne-colored silk. It will complement the dress without overpowering it. We can style it with a bit of a twist in front, very elegant, very regal." As Sarah worked applying foundation to even out my skin tone and creating a dramatic eye look that drew attention to what she called my stunning eyes, I began to feel a transformation taking place inside me. The initial shock and devastation were giving way to a cold, clear determination. I would not let them win. I would not let them ruin this day. "Your bone structure is actually fantastic," Sarah commented as she contoured my cheeks. "Some women would kill for these cheekbones, and without hair to distract from them, they really stand out." By the time she had finished the makeup and wrapped my head in the lustrous silk, creating an intricate knot at the front that looked deliberately stylish, I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. She looked elegant, distinctive, powerful. "We need jewelry to complete the look," Sarah decided. "Something bold for your ears since they are now a feature." She disappeared into a back room and returned with a pair of stunning pearl and crystal chandelier earrings. "These were my grandmother's. I want you to borrow them today." As she fastened them to my ears, Tara, who had been making calls and arrangements throughout the process, gasped. "Jeannie, you look absolutely magnificent. Not just beautiful, but regal, powerful." For the first time since waking up bald, I felt a flicker of confidence. The woman in the mirror did not look like a victim. She looked like someone who had made a bold, deliberate choice. Like someone who answered to no one but herself. "What do you want to do about the wedding?" Tara asked gently. "It is your call. We can postpone or—" "No," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "The wedding happens today as planned, but my parents and Allison are not welcome. I do not want them there." Tara nodded, already dialing another number. "I will handle it. My brother Daniel and his friends from the security company can make sure they do not get in." With hair and makeup complete, we headed to the chapel in Tara's car rather than the bridal limo I had arranged. I called Michael at last, telling him only that there had been a family situation and that I would explain everything in person. "Just know that I love you," I told him, "and nothing is going to stop me from marrying you today." When we arrived at the chapel, the wedding planner Jessica met us at the side entrance to avoid any early guests. Her professionally neutral expression crumbled when she saw my wrapped head. "Oh my God, what happened?" she blurted out. In as few words as possible, I explained the situation. To her credit, Jessica recovered quickly, her professional training kicking in. "Okay, we can handle this. You look stunning, by the way. The wrap is elegant and distinctive." She quickly revised the schedule, ensuring I would have a private room until the ceremony began. She confirmed that my parents and sister would be denied entry if they arrived. "Consider it handled," she assured me. "This is your day and no one is going to ruin it." As the hour of the ceremony approached, a strange calm settled over me. In my beautiful lace gown with my silk-wrapped head and borrowed earrings, I looked nothing like the bride I had imagined I would be. And yet I had never felt more authentically myself. A knock at the door revealed Jessica with an update. "Your parents and sister are here," she said quietly. "They are being kept in the chapel foyer. Your father is insisting on walking you down the aisle. What do you want me to tell them?" I considered for a moment. Part of me wanted to confront them, to scream and rage at their betrayal, but that would give them power over this day that they did not deserve. "Tell them they have two choices," I said finally. "They can take seats in the back row and not approach me, or they can leave. I will be walking down the aisle alone." Jessica nodded, understanding the weight of my decision. The guests are seated. The music will begin in 5 minutes. Are you ready? I took a deep breath and straightened my shoulders. Yes, I am ready. The traditional bridal march began to play as I positioned myself alone behind the chapel's massive wooden doors. Through the small windows, I could see Michael waiting at the altar, his face tense with concern. My bridesmaids had already processed taking their places at the front. Allison, I noted, was not among them. She sat in the third row beside my parents, her expression unreadable from this distance. The wedding coordinator gave me a reassuring nod and opened the doors. The music swelled, and as tradition dictated, the entire congregation rose and turned to see the bride. What followed was a moment of profound silence. 200 people simultaneously registering the sight of a bald bride wrapped in silk rather than crowned with the expected cascading curls. I saw shock, confusion, and then as I began my solitary walk down the aisle with my head held high, something else entirely: admiration. Michael's face underwent a similar transformation. The initial shock gave way to confusion. Then understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a love so fierce and protective it was almost tangible. As I approached, I saw tears streaming unashamedly down his face. When I reached him, he took my hands in his and whispered, "You are the most beautiful bride I have ever seen." Those 7 words healed something broken inside me. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was marrying the right man, that whatever happened next, we would face it together. The ceremony proceeded with a heightened emotional intensity no one had anticipated. When the minister spoke of, for better or worse, the words resonated through the chapel with new meaning. When he mentioned honoring one another, I felt Michael's hand tighten around mine. When it came time for our vows, Michael went first as planned. He looked directly into my eyes, his voice steady and sure. "Jeannie, I vow to love you through every season of our lives together. I vow to be your shelter in storms and your companion in sunshine. I vow to see you, truly see you every day for the rest of our lives." He paused, then added with quiet intensity, "And I vow to be the family you deserve, to create with you a home where you are always valued, always respected, always adored." My turn came, and despite everything, my voice did not waver. "Michael, I vow to bring my whole self to our marriage, my strengths and my vulnerabilities. I vow to build with you a relationship based on truth, respect, and unwavering support. I vow to stand beside you in difficulty and dance with you in joy. And I vow to always remember that love is not about possession or control, but about nurturing each other's growth and freedom." When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, Michael's kiss held promise and protection in equal measure. We turned to face our guests, and the applause that erupted felt like a collective affirmation of our right to happiness, regardless of what obstacles had been thrown in our path. Our recessional down the aisle was triumphant. I deliberately avoided looking at my parents, and Allison keeping my eyes fixed on the future represented by the chapel doors ahead. The original plan had been to take family photos immediately after the ceremony, but I had instructed Jessica to cancel that portion for obvious reasons. Instead, Michael and I took a few moments alone, in a small antechamber off the main chapel. "What happened?" he asked, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Did you do this yourself?" Quietly, I told him everything. The drugged champagne waking up bawled my parents' note. With each detail, his expression darkened. "I am going to kill them," he said when I finished, and for a moment I believed he might. "How could they do this to you, their own daughter?" Because I was never really their daughter, I said the truth of it settling over me with strange clarity. I was just an accessory to the Allison show. And when I refused to play my assigned role, they tried to force me back into it the only way they could think of. Michael took my face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle. "You are the strongest person I have ever known. And you look absolutely stunning today. Different than we planned, but somehow more you, more authentic, more powerful." The next challenge awaited us at the reception. As we prepared to make our entrance, I made a decision. I approached the DJ and whispered my request. He looked surprised but nodded. When the double doors opened, instead of the traditional announcement of Mr. and Mrs. Walker, the DJ's voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael and Jeannie Walker, who have already demonstrated what for better or worse really means." The crowd erupted in applause as we entered. I scanned the room, noting with satisfaction that Tara had kept her promise. Two large men in suits stood discreetly near my parents, and Allison, who were seated at a table far from the main action. Once the initial greetings were complete, I took the microphone, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "Thank you all for sharing this day with us," I began. "Some of you may be wondering about my appearance today." I took a deep breath. Last night, my parents drugged me and shaved my head at the demand of my sister, who threatened to cut them off if they did not comply. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I continued, my voice steady. "I tell you this not to create drama on what should be a joyous day, but because I am done with secrets, done with pretending. For too long, I have accepted treatment that no one should tolerate, all in the name of family peace." My eyes found my parents, who sat frozen in horror. Allison was staring at the tablecloth, unable to meet anyone's gaze. "To those who truly love me, thank you for your support. It means more than you can know. To those who came here today to witness my humiliation rather than my joy," I said, looking directly at my family now, "you have failed. What was meant to break me has only made me stronger." I saw my father half rise from his seat, but one of Tara's security friends placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "I had planned to forgive you to rise above this betrayal, but forgiveness requires remorse, and I see none in your faces. Only shock that your plan did not work as intended." I straightened to my full height. "This is my wedding day. Michael and I deserve to celebrate with people who genuinely wish us well. I am asking you to leave." My mother stood now, her face mottled with anger and embarrassment. "How dare you humiliate us publicly after everything we have done for you?" Michael stepped forward, his voice low but carrying. "Everything you have done to her, you mean? Leave now before I forget that I am a gentleman." My father looked around the room, suddenly aware that every eye was upon them, every face reflecting shock and disgust at their actions. For perhaps the first time, he was seeing how others viewed their treatment of me. "Come on," he muttered to my mother and Allison. "This is ridiculous." As they gathered their things, Allison finally spoke, her voice petulant. "It was just hair. I do not understand why she is making such a big deal about it." An older woman at a nearby table, one of Michael's aunts, fixed Allison with a withering stare. "It was assault, young lady. You could be charged with a crime. I suggest you leave quietly while that remains an option." Security escorted them out, and as the door closed behind them, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I turned back to our guests. "Now let us celebrate love, respect, and new beginnings, the way a wedding should be." What followed was not the wedding reception I had planned, but something more meaningful. Michael's family surrounded us with protective warmth. Friends offered heartfelt words of support. Even the vendors who had overhead parts of the story went above and beyond to make everything perfect. Our first dance took on new significance. As Michael led me onto the floor, I moved with a freedom I had never known before. My wrapped head held high, my husband's eyes never leaving mine. We swayed to our chosen song, "Stand By Me," its lyrics more poignant than ever. Throughout the evening, guests approached to tell me how beautiful I looked, how inspired they were by my courage. Several women discreetly shared their own stories of family toxicity, of boundaries drawn and freedom found. By the time we cut the cake and prepared to depart for our hotel, the traumatic start to the day felt distant, overshadowed by the genuine joy and love that had filled the hours since. As we made our exit under a shower of rose petals, Michael leaned down to whisper in my ear, "Are you ready to start our real life together? One where you are never second best." I squeezed his hand. "I have been ready my entire life." I woke up the morning after our wedding in a sunlit hotel suite, the events of the previous 36 hours feeling almost dreamlike in their intensity. For a disorienting moment, my hand went to my head, finding the smooth silk of the wrap I had slept in rather than hair. It had not been a nightmare after all. Michael was already awake, watching me with concerned eyes. "How are you feeling?" "Like I have been through a war," I admitted, "but also free." We had a decision to make. Our honeymoon to Greece was scheduled to begin that evening. Part of me wanted to postpone to deal with the aftermath of what my family had done. But another part, the part that was tired of letting them dictate my life, wanted to proceed exactly as planned. "They have taken enough from me," I told Michael over room service breakfast. "They are not taking our honeymoon too." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Whatever you want to do, I am with you. But I think you are right. The best response to what they did is to live our lives fully on our terms." Before leaving for the airport, I did two things. First, I filed a police report documenting what my parents and sister had done. I did not yet know if I would press charges, but I wanted the incident on record. Second, I posted a single photo to social media, showing me in my wedding dress and head wrap with a simple caption, "Sometimes the most beautiful moments come after the most difficult ones. Thank you to everyone who stood by us yesterday. New beginnings." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends and acquaintances expressed shock and support. Several women who had lost their hair to cancer or alopecia reached out to thank me for showing that bald could be beautiful. By the time our plane took off for Athens, the post had been shared thousands of times. For 2 weeks, Michael and I explored the sun-drenched islands of Greece. With each passing day, I felt myself healing not just from the recent trauma, but from decades of emotional neglect. Michael took dozens of photos of me posing confidently with my wrapped head against blue Mediterranean skies. I bought colorful local scarves and learned new ways to tie them. When people asked about my distinctive look, I sometimes told the truth, sometimes simply said it was a style choice. The freedom to choose my own narrative was intoxicating. We returned home to a transformed situation. My story had gone viral in our absence. Journalists had reached out for interviews. Support groups for toxic family survivors had shared my wedding photo. And waiting in our mailbox was a formal letter from my parents' attorney warning me against making defamatory statements. "They are worried about their reputation," Michael observed as we read the letter. "Not about what they did to you, but about people knowing what they did." This cemented my decision. With Michael's support, I consulted an attorney of my own and filed for a restraining order against all 3 family members. The evidence was strong. The police report I had filed, photos of my shaved head, the note they had left, even testimony from Tara, who had witnessed the aftermath. The judge granted the order, legally mandating that my parents and sister stay at least 500 feet away from me for the next year. It was a public record, another blow to the perfect family image they had cultivated for so long. Alongside these legal actions, I began therapy with a psychologist who specialized in family trauma. Dr. Wilson helped me understand that what I had experienced went far beyond typical family dysfunction. "What you are describing is a lifetime of emotional abuse, culminating in a physical assault," she told me during our second session. "Your decision to set boundaries is not just healthy, it is necessary for your well-being." Those early months of marriage became a time of both healing and discovery. As my hair began to grow back, first as soft fuzz, then as a short pixie cut, I found myself embracing the new look. There was something symbolic about watching my hair return on my terms, in a style of my choosing. Michael's family became my family in all the ways that mattered. His mother called weekly, just to check in. His father sent me articles on architecture he thought would interest me. His brother and sister-in-law invited us for casual Sunday dinners where everyone's opinions were valued equally. My career flourished as I channeled my new self-confidence into my work. 6 months after the wedding, I was offered a position as marketing director, the youngest in the company's history. On our first wedding anniversary, Michael surprised me with a photo album. The first half contained professional wedding photos showing me in my silk head wrap and wedding gown. The second half was filled with photos from the past year documenting my hair growing from bare scalp to the stylish shortcut I now wore. The final page held a mirror with the words, "The best is yet to come," engraved beneath it. That same week, I received a letter from my father. Unlike the legal threat of a year earlier, this was handwritten on his personal stationery. "Jeannie," it began. I have started and discarded this letter a dozen times, finding no adequate words. What we did was unforgivable. I have no excuses to offer, only deep regret. Your mother and I have begun counseling to understand how we allowed ourselves to behave so abhorrently toward our own daughter. Allison is still unwilling to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Perhaps someday, if you are ever willing, we could meet in a neutral setting with a professional mediator present. Until then, please know that I recognize the pain we caused, and I am truly sorry, Dad. I read the letter twice, then set it aside. I felt neither the burning rage of a year ago, nor the desperate desire for approval I had carried for decades. Just a quiet acknowledgement that his words came too late to change the past, though perhaps they opened a tiny door to some different future. My mother and Allison sent no such acknowledgments. From mutual acquaintances, I heard that my mother maintained that I had overreacted to a prank, while Allison had taken to describing herself as the victim of family estrangement. Their narratives no longer had the power to hurt me. I had built a life filled with genuine love and respect, surrounded by people who saw me clearly and valued me fully. 2 years after our wedding, Michael and I were thrilled to discover I was pregnant. As I stood looking at the positive test, my hand went instinctively to my now shoulder-length hair. I had grown it out not to recapture what was lost, but because I wanted to experience all the choices now available to me. "Should we tell your parents?" Michael asked cautiously. We had established limited contact with my father, meeting twice for brief, mediated conversations. My mother and Allison remained firmly outside my life. "No," I said after consideration. "This joy belongs to the family we have chosen, the one we are building. They lost the right to be grandparents when they chose to be abusers." As my pregnancy progressed, we created new family traditions to replace the toxic ones I had grown up with. Sunday morning pancakes, monthly date nights, photo albums where every member of our growing family was centered and celebrated. The greatest lesson from my journey came unexpectedly when a colleague who had heard my story asked if I had any regrets about cutting off my family. I considered the question carefully before answering. "I regret that it took such an extreme violation for me to recognize my own worth," I told her. "But I do not regret establishing boundaries that protect my peace. Family should be about love, not obligation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to walk away until genuine change occurs." When our daughter Lily was born pink and perfect with a dusting of dark hair like her father's, I made her a silent promise as I held her in my arms. She would grow up knowing her unconditional worth. She would never question if she was enough. She would understand that love does not require erasure of self. Looking at my life now, I can see with perfect clarity that losing my hair helped me find myself. When my parents and sisters stripped me of what they saw as my beauty, they inadvertently revealed my strength. The baldness they inflicted as punishment became a crown of self-sovereignty. To anyone struggling with family toxicity, know this: you are not obligated to keep people in your life who diminish your spirit regardless of shared DNA. The family that matters is the one that lifts you up, that celebrates your joy, that stands beside you in difficulty. Sometimes you find that family through birth. Sometimes you find it through marriage. Sometimes you create it from a network of loyal friends. And sometimes, most powerfully, you find it within yourself. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between family obligation and personal well-being? What helped you find the strength to choose yourself? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family betrayal and finding your own path. And remember, sometimes when people try to break you, they accidentally set you free. Thank you for listening to my story.